He removed all the books from the law library. The floor came up, the situation corrected itself, and it cost us $0. That was a huge savings to us that we didn't have to pay. The detention center remodel, that's ongoing, at $50,000 minimum. The sheriff's office remodel is about $45,000 minimum. Heating and air conditioning, we used to call Tri-County for everything. Now we have somebody in-house who's doing it. That's $100 per hour difference. Plumbing, that will be with the HVACR training that we have for our maintenance. Also, what is being done for our detention center. Instead of calling a plumber to change some of the valves, it's done in-house. Generators maintenance, that's $150 an hour, now being done in-house. Senior center kitchen, it's been $88 an hour for a lot of calls over the years that's now being fixed rather than just band-aided. Heating costs, those have been actually managed to a point of a huge savings annually. So, again, if you want to talk about just spending money or you want to talk about saving the taxpayers' money, potential savings annually for in-house maintenance is $50,000 to $80,000. Potential cost to the taxpayers for janitor only is about $200,000 annually and more money being spent. It's not rocket science, folks, it's just good management versus not good management.
You know, here a while back, they had this one guy come and do some investigation, $1,000 a day he was charging. Back on this mosquito, I don't care if it costs $50 or if it costs $400 an hour. The total figure, and the total figure is between $25,000 and $28,000 that the mosquito project has been done the last 2 years, and it's been done good. And the county has no responsibility. They don't have to buy any chemical. They don't have to see that they're out there getting it done. It's done right.
Okay, anything else on that?
I have a question.
All right.
Can we
Yes.
ask questions on this?
It's actually a working meeting. Let's come out of the working meeting and we will get into our decision and take questions and comments. So with that, we are 5 minutes early, but as these issues and times are subject to change, decision, building project funding, proposal management, and adjustments decision. Yes, Corey?
So I'm not clear if how this relates to the building project. Am I on the right agenda item to ask questions or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
We had two issues.
Proposal we just went over?
Yeah, that was part B.
and it's all interrelated, so that's why it's all together.
So with this, what exactly is the proposal related to these personnel and what's the timeline that you're anticipating to implement this?
For the personnel portion?
Yeah.
I think we need to implement it fairly shortly because we have a vacancy coming up. And that's the reason we're even discussing it.
You mean my
So-
vacancy?
Mhm.
Okay,
I didn't know if I could say that publicly. So,
not me.
As far as I know. Well, that's another agenda. As far as I know.
Go ahead.
So, in order to have a place for departments to start their hiring, instead of just picking a number out of the air, this salary survey gives us something scientific to start at. But we can't really start somebody at a decent wage unless other people are brought up to that who've already been with us for a certain amount of time. So, what I would suggest for this, if we pass it, is that new hires are brought in at 80% of median. And then as they go through probation, they are brought up from there. And then they also have the option of coming up further through the career progression chart. But we can't hire somebody new at 80% of median if we still have employees at 73% of median. And I'm not sure we would get qualified people if we advertised at 70% of median. So, and I would also say that if a department head wanted to come forward and say, we need to change the grade or the classification for this position because of A, B, and C, we can do this. It doesn't take away our ability to address each individual department or position. And also if a department head wanted to come together and say, you know, I'm not gonna be able to find anybody qualified at, $8 an hour, I need to raise it to 85% of median for advertising, then we can talk about that as well. But it gives us a starting point that's equitable for all departments and keeps us on more of a, no, this isn't personal, this is just the facts. sense?
It does. I would say, number one, if my idea is what's putting us all in this fast track to do this, then you know, don't worry about that. We don't need to approve this for me. I mean, we need to iron this out. My position regardless, I do intend to break it into two options, paralegal or legal secretary, depending on qualifications. But in terms of breaking it down into the 70, 80, 85, 90, whatever, depending on their experience and qualifications, I don't want that half-developed idea to push the county into something that's a little premature. And the reason I'm saying that is one thing that I think we have to do is we need to talk to the union. I would fully expect a Teamsters union objection, probably not a lawsuit initially, but because they will see this and they'll argue that this is a way to get around the collective bargaining agreement. So I think we need to have a very thorough discussion with them before we embark on this, so that we aren't immediately in the middle of a big fight with the union where they're saying that that's really what we're attempting to do.
According to, not to cut in, but according to Sheriff Meehan, the collective bargaining unit put in their CBA that if it was market analysis, that there was no
Right,
grounds.
right.
And that's what
No,
this
market
is all
adjustment.
based off of, is market adjust, so
Yeah,
we've
I
got the science
I got
to
that.
be with the CBA.
No, I got that. I'm not talking about if somebody just gets a $1 increase based on a CBA, or based on a market adjustment. What I'm talking about is, what we've done is built-in steps where employee A, over the course of 6 years, good performance, additional training, additional qualifications, goes to what would be, say, the 85 or 90% mark. What we've done in that process is given the ability for department heads to reward that performance and increase capability, which is exactly what we want them to be able to do. However, on the other side of that, what I would expect the Teamsters union to do is to potentially fight that as a way to get around the agreement with them. So I'm just saying, we need to lay the groundwork with them up front before we implement, because otherwise we're gonna be in the middle of a big fight with them.
And we talked about that perhaps before you came in. Putting together the career progression chart is gonna take some time.
Right.
That's really not gonna be decided today. It's going to be individual to each different department. So yeah, that's gonna take a little bit of time. But as far as the immediate market adjustments, so that we put everybody equitable, that we can do now. So the two are separate, but if somebody wants to move higher than, say, 90% of median, even with a career progression chart, we move them up to 95, we're still below median. So we're still safe with the CBA and the union. But definitely, I think we need to divide the two, because we don't have anything put together for the career progression chart yet. As far as the salary survey, that has been well-planned, well thought out. It's something that, Dick put together for us, so again, took all emotions out. All we're dealing with now are facts. And if we have an employee making 73% median, I think we should address it. And it's something that we did during the budget season, is we withheld $26,000 so that we could address some of the people who are the lowest paid. Not looking at everybody, we're just looking at 5 people who are substantially below median income for their job description.
A median of the sample that was done in the survey?
Yes,
Of
yes.
those however
Not
many counties?
including Gallatin, Jefferson, or Lewis and Clark counties. So it's just those 4 counties that are same value, taxable valuation, and like population.
Can you remind me who they were? Jefferson?
No, Jefferson's not part of this.
Jefferson has a much higher taxable value than we do, but we have lost people to Jefferson County. So you can argue that either way, but we didn't include it in this.
What were the 4 we?
Ponderay, Blaine, Toole, Fallon, I think, those 4. So 2 have a higher valuation than us, to have a lower valuation than us, so I took the middle and just used that as a starting point. So a person making 100% median is making right in the middle of 4 counties our same taxable value.
Okay.
So even if we raise, say a department head to 90% of median, we're raising them to 90% of what the middle is for like counties our same taxable value.
So
They're
you
still below.
so you have Tool, Fallon, Pondere, and Blaine.
Okay, so what I would, back to what I, if my proposal and the fact that I'm about to go into a hiring decision is what prompting this, that's great, I think it's a good idea, but I would think it needs to be pretty well developed and vetted before we get ourselves in not only implementing countywide, but getting ourselves in an unnecessary fight with the union. And then the second thing I would say is that whether it's me
How
or
is a
somebody
market
else.
adjustment a fight with the union when
Well-
it says in the CBA that we can do market adjustments, and these are all defensible based on a third-party survey of market adjustments?
What I'm saying is not the market adjustment, but the steps process where
Right,
the
okay,
employee can go from step 1, 2, 3, 4 over the course of a certain number of years without being promoted to, really what it is, it's an internal promotion. But I'm just saying, I anticipate this being a fight based on the negotiations we had with them last year, and we need to lay the groundwork of going through this with them before we implement it, because
and we already
We need to
said we were
avoid
gonna
we need
take
to-
the time to
we
do
need to
that.
veer off the fight is what we need.
So
Right.
just so I'm clear,
I'm
what,
sorry, Commission, could Corey talk a little bit closer? We're having trouble hearing me. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure,
sure. So what your suggestion is the market adjustment is not the issue, it's the step 2 that we need to spend a little more time on.
That's correct.
all right,
I have a question.
yes, Chris.
Chris Wright, refresh my memory if you could. The cost of the report was 9,000 and change? Was it like nine something? And didn't that include all of the job description stuff? So if you went, was there any price given on, like, let's say next year? Because I'm looking at this, without science, you put aside $26,000, right?
Right, it was-
With science, you come up with the actual number is $8,000, or almost $9,000 less. It's $8,100 less.
yes,
So right away, you saved $8,100. Right? That's every year, based on the one report that you had done for $9,500. And if you had to have it done over again, it would be much less because you're not gonna have the job description stuff done. If you're talking about just calling a bunch of people up and surveying and find out what they're paying this year, so that you can remain competitive, that's what you're talking about? Is
yes,
that? And I think the cost, what you don't have in the cost of turnover, the morale, the way the morale suffers, who hasn't been in a job where you find out that somebody was hired after you is making more money than you were, right? I mean, there is nothing, and that just causes all kinds of problems in the department, because what happens is, if I feel like you're underpaying me, and I really get a bug, like a burn to my saddle about that, here's what happens. If you're paying me $10 an hour, but I think I'm being grossly underpaid, or underpaid, I should be getting $12 an hour, I'm gonna start working 6 hours a day and looking like I'm working 8. Because if I have to be here, I'm gonna get you by not producing. You follow what I'm saying? It's that kind of stuff. This county, already, there's people here willing to take on, at the meetings I've been in, there's people that are willing to take on other responsibilities. When people come here in other departments and they're talking about, we just want to do our work and we get this solved so we can just do our work, they want to get their work done. I think that anything that we can do to make sure that the morale is there to continue that great attitude on the part of those people and not lose people to nearby counties. And you haven't even used the nearby counties that are easy to get to that pay more in this? Well, and there's something else that you haven't even put in there. I mean, my daughter, when we moved here, she was working up in Helena because there was more money. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's an easy commute. You said, I think in one of the previous meetings, we can live here for cheap and commute there pretty cheaply and pretty directly with no traffic lights and that kind of stuff to get to another place to make more money. I mean, there's plenty of people in this county that are working somewhere else in other counties to make more money. So anyway, it doesn't seem like I would support moving forward with that. It seems like you've already saved the money. You've already made up enough money to justify the cost of that report. So, and on top of that, if because of that report, all these people that you found out are at 100+% of median, and you're not gonna be giving them raises, what's that amount to in the course of a year? So I think that tool is a great tool. So, if I'm understanding.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, clarifications? All right. So,
Bill, did you have something on the meeting?
I do got stuff on the building.
okay,
I think you guys should be financially responsible and take a survey of the people that they want. And as far as, you do have one more bid that was, I guess probably wasn't thrown out, Guy Tobacco, because he was a general, he threw a bid in early, and I don't know where his stands as far as money-wise still is there, because I think you should take a look at that before you move forward, where he's at.
we don't have a Guy Tobacco.
Not in this bid, but in the last bid, because you guys going backwards on all the other bids too,
No.
because you're,
He had to apply for this position. We can't take somebody from a year ago.
well, like the other bids you guys are talking about for the 430,000, you're talking about going back with them, well, he was in with them bids. That's the only general that bid it back then. Was he lower than this bid now, or not?
No, he was 675 if I'm not
Okay, I just-
mistaken, so he was quite a bit more.
I just wanna make sure that don't come
Yeah.
back on the county. And when Nick took the project over, it was quite a bit less, and a local contractor said they could do it pretty reasonable, and they kinda left Nick with the ball. So now he's kinda left, with a big decision and just kinda, did follow through with their things, so I just, think the taxpayers should, when Slivka got on board with you, it was all, I think, because of that. And that's why we're at where we're at now. So I'd like to see you guys take a survey and see if you really want.
And I'd like to thank you for bringing that up, Billy. We did. In 2011, we did a county-wide capital improvement plan, city-county joint project. What do you guys want to see? This building project is the result of that county-city CIP. It was about a year of work. We have a document downstairs. It's for anybody to see. But we did. We took a survey of the people, and this building project is what they want.
How
So-
much back then compared to now?
You talking about price tag? I just was asking to clarify.
Well, the first price we had was $398,000. It's gone up from there. Again, that was citizen-driven by the folks who came to these meetings. Yeah, but thing is we did survey the public. They did give us an answer, and we moved forward at their behest. And that's where we're at now, is answering the survey of the people. So again, I really appreciate you bringing that forward. Any other questions? Mike?
I have a question and a couple of comments here. When you figure these prices in, does this include heat and utilities? These costs of these individual departments, does that cover all your heat and utilities?
No, it would be just like they're in a county office, or the office they're in now, the ambulance building they're in now, other than the fact that we're paying that. So, no, it's the same as any other department.
Okay,
We're not treating them any more differently than anyone else.
Okay, and the other thing is, since the search and rescue stuff, basically from my understanding, is driven mostly by lake and the BOR, things dealing with water stuff, and some people in the search and rescue would prefer a building out at the lake. Has BOR been contacted about any possible funding for the search and rescue building and a location of a boat at the lake, since that's,
BOR has been talked to. They are not going to build it for us. We have some options that are kind of cooking right now. There is a grant right now. Brandon, are you still on the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
If you would like to take notes, feel free. There is a grant right now that is being pursued for a new boat for search and rescue. There is also an option for a storage facility, storage unit, for just the boat and truck at the silos. It wouldn't hold anything else. So those are two things that we can look at. We'll need some of the particulars. We don't have them yet. That those are things that are cooking in the background right now.
Okay, and then the
So-
other thing is on this building, on the $434,000 one, is that what the price was, right?
Right around there.
Which is basically the cold storage. And that includes no interior finishing.
Correct.
So your cost for that,
Well, that also included the modular.
okay, the cost of that building itself, when you go to finish that interior, from experience at the fire hall in Winston, is they are gonna require you to sheet rock that, and they are gonna require you to insulate that ceiling to an R50 before they even let you occupy it. I mean, that's what the state did to us out there. That was something we did not anticipate happening at all.
We're aware of that, actually,
Okay.
yeah.
And that's why I made the statement I did, is I don't know, on top of that 430, what it's gonna cost to actually finish that shell.
Yeah, that's the two things that you're absolutely gonna have to do.
Right.
They
So-
aren't gonna let you occupy it until you do that.
That's the reason why I made the suggestion I did.
Any more, Mike?
No,
No.
thank you.
Billy?
So now if the new building doesn't have sheet rock in it,
Yes,
is
it
that
does.
gonna be an added expense?
Yes,
Well,
it
that's-
does.
It's a turnkey building.
Jeremy said there was no sheet rock, he said you insulated and it was open.
No, he was
back.
talking about the roof. There was a different roof they were
So
trying
you
to
guys got a
do.
lower ceiling in there? Is that what-
We're
So-
gonna talk with the contractor and they.
What we need to clarify, okay? So you're looking at only half of that search and rescue building is heated storage. The other half is cold storage. Then, so you're only talking about half of that building, needing to address the issue that Mike brought up. Because then the office space is not as tall as the other building. That's brought down to 8-foot ceilings. So that is taken care of as an actual office space. So now you're only talking about half of a building that is heated for the heated storage. The other half is cold storage. It can be whatever it needs to be. You're not gonna need to address the same issues that, well, you will with the issue of the stuff falling down, because it's a heated, but you're not talking about, you're not heating that whole search and rescue building, you're only heating a portion of it. So that is how the engineers said, well, whether it's 14 feet tall or whatever, you're only heating half of it, so that's how they came up with their numbers of savings. You're not heating the whole search and rescue building. That is what we need to make sure that it's clear. It's not a complete heated storage, you're only heating half of it. So it's only 2 bays that is being heated. And that's for their ice, snowmobile, and the boat, and then whatever happens later on with the boat, whatever. But that's the point of that, is it's only partial that you're heating.
Any other questions?
Well,
Chris.
Chris Wright, I have a question to Mike, actually, Deldry, if it's okay if I address.
Absolutely.
Mike, in your experience, you're a contractor, right? So what do you think it would cost? What's the most it would cost to finish the inside of that building? The one, like what Bill was talking about, where we're up at 435, if they had to do, the sheet rock and the stuff inside, how much could it cost?
It's probably would be about, probably $4 a square foot for your walls and probably about the same for your ceiling,
So what's the area?
depending on how much the area is. You mean the 434?
I'm not talking-
I don't know what
yeah.
the square footage of that building
I'm not
was.
asking you to expose your business model and tell everybody how much you've been making as a contractor when you're doing your bids. I'm saying, as the owner, there's without the contractor price. I mean, we've already established that bringing a contractor in. The contractors that did it, they're probably not all doing all the work, right? They've got subs that are gonna come in and do parts of it, right? And the contractor's gonna make money. I'm talking about as the owner and looking to save as much money as possible. I mean, I'm reminded, this whole thing is reminding me of a cartoon I saw in the 80s where the Wizard of Oz, where they bring in this guy into the king and they say, this guy charged the kingdom $400 for a toilet seat or something. And he's like, what should we do with him? He says, send him out, bring me the guy that paid the bill. Who paid $400 for, I'm sitting, as I came into this meeting, Well, $150,000 is what we're talking about because people can't get along, because we want to avoid a problem with the department? $150,000. That doesn't seem reasonable to me, and I object, as a taxpayer, I object to that cavalier attitude towards an amount of money like that in this project. I mean, if we're gonna build it, you know, I mean, if we have the benefit of a guy who works for the county, who's a contractor, and a guy on the commission who's a contractor up until the day he took office, why would we pay that kind of extra money to get
Well,
that job?
because the reason that you're paying the extra $150 is when you do this $434,000 building that they're talking about, that includes a modular.
Okay,
When you build the other building with the office spaces on it, that's where you have the price difference.
well, it just seems that the $150,000, I don't remember anybody who was gonna be using the building talking about their requirements about what it looked like or anything like, all they cared about was the space. And if we can get away with $430,000, why would we spend $600,000 on a building we can get away with $435,000?
Well, because you build the $434,000 as a pole barn building, which when you come in there to finish that out,
Right,
means in order to get your R factor,
Right.
you're gonna you either have to build that pole barn and put uprights on 2-foot centers so that you can insulate that, or you just put 1.5 inches on it, which doesn't give you the R factor on the walls.
but you could build something inside that shell.
So there goes $150,000.
I can't, $150,000 to finish that.
Minus the modular. You have the cost of the modular included in there. So you're gonna go into that pole barn, number one, you gotta run nailers between your rafters, because they're on 10 to 12-foot center. And then you gotta put studs in the walls.
Right,
And then you gotta cover those studs.
right.
So
Right.
you're sitting in there at a pretty good chunk of money to go in there and finish that building.
I think we should get a price on that. I would urge the commission to get a price on that last feature, which is a constant, every time this comes up, it's, oh, but the building has to be finished, and nobody knows what that number is. I really think before we make a decision, we should get some kind of number for that finish. So, instead of spending $150 extra for the heck of it. Especially if the reason for spending $150 is because somebody's gonna be put under pressure by somebody who, like, I don't get that. So that's my,
Hey, Mike, can you refresh our memory? Was the bid from Montana Post Frame, was that finished interior?
There was a stick frame from Montana Post Frame, foundations, slab floor. We were finishing the interior, it was all figured in $430. Insulation, sheet rock, unfinished on the sheet rock, no mud, no paint.
So the $430 included the sheet rock and insulation, it just didn't include paste, tape and texture and paint?
Nobody decided when to sit down and talk to me about it and look at everything I figured out, so I'm just trying to not have that hammer come down on top of me like you mentioned earlier.
So Chris, it does include the sheet rock, the $430 includes the sheet rock
okay, well then
insulation.
all the more reason to, I think, and Franklin, every time it comes up and you say, well, what's that gonna cost? I'd like to know, nobody's ever said, here's the number, they did it on all the other stuff. If somebody could come up with a number for the actual finish, because they're gonna wanna work in a finished environment, right? So somebody's gonna have to tape it, inspect it, do all that. Okay, great. If we could come up with that number, it doesn't seem like we've done most of the heavy lifting. Can't we come up with a number to finish the finish and then say, okay, this is what the total is, instead of saying 435 plus some crazy number?
Well, the finish is now just paint and tape and texture.
That's gotta have a number, Laura, and I guess
No,
I'm
you're
just,
right,
to take
you're right.
away
It's
all
just a lot
the
less than I
objections,
thought.
let's come up with what the number is. So,
Mike, do you have any idea from your research on what that number would be?
Flat square footage.
Ann?
It depends on if you hire it out.
Hang on 1 second.
It depends on if you hire it out, you do it in-house. I mean, you're still gonna have labor costs even in-house, so.
We could have search and rescue volunteer some time, just like the firefighters did, right?
Material costs are probably somewhere in the range of 5,000.
5,000
Finish
more.
the inside of the search and rescue building, maybe 6, somewhere 5 and 6. I mean, paint's $115, 5-gallon pail. Mud's not that expensive. Mud's cheap.
Okay. Ann, I'm sorry?
I'm confused. We're talking about bids that we have just received and the basically 632,000. So now all of a sudden, we're talking about going back to the 430,000. And the only thing that's ever been mentioned is the pole barn. What's happened to the office space? And how much more money are we going to spend on getting this back to another bid? There's no guarantee we'll get it for the bids that were given before, that we would get the modular for that. We're talking two different projects here and getting them all mixed up. We need to talk about one or the other.
You're right. I will clarify, and then I think we should at least decide on what direction we're going. The 430 includes a 6,000 square foot storage building, dry storage building, and a modular that's a little bit bigger office space than we're looking for now. So we are talking about more square foot. Both were placed in such a way that they could be easily added on to for growth 10, 20, 30 years from now. The 430 includes the interior finished. Of course, the modular is finished. It just doesn't include paint, tape, and texture. Mike did tell me this morning he would be willing to take over that project as the owner's representative if we wanted to go back to that project. We never did go to Montana Post Frame, Townsend Electric, or Hard Rock and say, no, we're not interested in your bids. So if they would still be willing to honor those prices, we could be good to go. So that's A. B is turnkey, 632,000. The contractor has said, we will work with you because we're hungry for this project. If you want your staff to do more work, we can lower it to potentially 580,000. It's still more money. It's a smaller space for search and rescue, and it's a smaller office space, but still enough to meet our needs for this year as well as probably the next 10 years. So it does have the ability looking forward. So those are the two projects. So the funding could be the same. We're paying ourselves the interest versus intercap, where it's just for a different amount. The buyback would be a little bit less per department. Search and rescue stays the same, but, so, clear as mud. And we don't know, if we did make a vote to go to the 430, we'd have to have a contingency that those three would honor their bids, and we'd have it on record that Mike Delger would be taking over as the owner's representative and working with Mike Myers and Eric. So, any thoughts?
I have one question if I could.
Yes, Brandon, go ahead.
With this, with the plan B with the $600,000, and you said the search and rescue is about 1,000 square feet, is that more than what they currently have, or is that less?
It's more than they currently have by a significant amount, and I forget what the numbers are.
Okay.
I think it's
That's my only question.
Yeah, I think it's like 32 or 33,000 square feet now.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So, because this is easier, seeing no more comments, what I would ask for a voter decision on is the market adjustments for the 5 staff to building maintenance worker at 85% of median, the clerk and recorder assistant to 80% of median, accounting clerk to 80% of median, the weed coordinator to 90% of median, and building maintenance supervisor to 90% of median, for a total of 17,868. What do you guys think? Nothing with the steps, just the market adjustments.
I'd make a motion to support the market analysis.
Do we have a second? Okay, I'll second the motion, seeing none. It's been moved and seconded to go ahead and grant the market adjustment for those 5 positions as defined, 80, 85, and 90% of median. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion, opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Please let the record show, 2 votes aye, 1 vote nay. All right, so, and we will work on a step or a career progression chart with our department heads, put that together, of course, work with the union. But I think it's important just so that we can communicate to our staff that that is an option for them. So moving along then to the building project. So do we want to make a decision on whether to go with R&R Taylor, is that their name? R&R Taylor Construction at this point with the turnkey proposal that they gave us? Or do we want to go back to the $430,000 plan, provided that those companies are all willing to stand by their bids?
Is there gonna, so will there be, can there be any legal ramification if we go back to the owner's representative?
And let me clarify that question. We would not be using the engineered plans or architectured plans for that. It would be the previous project where Montana Post Frame does their own engineering and architecture, and of course the modular is already architectured and engineered.
I believe Jeremy
Are you
said
asking me-
it would be
are you
a
asking me?
problem.
I am.
Jeremy had said there would be a problem if we used the engineered bids and went out and rebid for pieces. We're not talking about that. We're talking about 430 plan as it was done in July, or the 630 plan as we have it proposed now.
Well, there was a reason we didn't do it before. And some of the details escape me because we're on the 3rd version of this plan in the last year and a half. But there was a reason, first of all, the first time around, there were legal issues with it. It was didn't have architect, there was a lot of reasons it didn't go anywhere. The second time around, and I don't recall what exactly was the problem, but there was some issue procedurally with it. But the big sticking point, as you recall, at that time was if an owner's representative does it for the county and there's no general contractor with their bonding and insurance, then you're relying on the subcontractors to do their bonding and insurance. In addition to that, which we can have them do, likely some of that savings we thought we were getting through the general we're not getting because those subs are gonna increase their bids to cover that cost. But in addition to that, the big concern at that time was the liability exposure, because we do not have a general contractor with their liability coverage and bonding over the whole project. That still remains, and the advice I gave you at that time was that there's no reason to take on that liability. That still remains. Secondly, from that time till now, what we've done is not accepted any of those bids, and that was a year ago. So I don't know that those bids from a year ago are gonna hold true. We've now gone to this fully designed, fully engineered plan with the general, and the decision before this commission needs to be either accept that and move forward, or reject it, and we need to go back and probably reanalyze from the other perspective. I don't know why we would have any reasonable expectation that those subs that gave us a bid a year ago are gonna stick to that bid. But, so that's my first question, is why are we even contemplating this when there was a reason we didn't agree to this plan number 2 a year ago? And this room was full of people, including people from the building industry who said it's a bad idea. Since that time, I've talked to 2 different construction superintendents who do this for a living, and they shook their head and said, holy cow, I can't believe your county was gonna do that. That's a bad idea, for some of the same reasons that I've shared here. So I think there is, not only back to the original issue, there's the liability exposure of not having a general. Secondly, And if something goes wrong with the project, we absolutely will be one of the main defendants, the county will, you can guarantee it. But secondly, nobody that gave us that bid, which we rejected a year ago, is gonna be obligated to give us that same bid or performance at that price. So we would be going back and re-opening it. And again, the question is why? So finally, I got an email from Harold Blatty. Since I was here last, I went back and said, county commissioners, quit sending stuff to MACO for legal advice without asking me about it. I got an email from Harold Blatty, who got an email from Commissioner Colbert on Friday, asking if we could do this idea. And he said, I'm working on the response with Brian Hopkins, but I don't have the final response, but it's a very bad idea, and I agree with Harold and Brian on this, and I do think we're going to be exposed to significant liability. So, my answer is, it's a bad idea all the way around. You need to either make the decision, accept the bids that are in front of you, or reject them and go back to the drawing board.
And thank you for that. It was July 25th, so not quite 6 months ago.
For which one? The second round that we rejected?
Yeah, for the $430
Okay.
project.
Like I said, there have been several rounds and I lost track of which one was.
All right, so we do have an opinion that we probably shouldn't go the $430,000 route.
I'm not here for popularity votes, so, I just
You
want
are
to
here
set
for
it
that.
down.
No, he's not for a popular, or an exploring decision.
I would suggest going to turnkey.
All right, so the motion is to accept the R&R Taylor construction bid. All right, do we have a second for that motion? Okay, seeing none, I will second the motion. It has been moved and seconded to accept the R&R Taylor construction bid for $631,978 for the building project. All those in favor, please signify by saying, oh, wait a minute, before we go back to that, I want to ask for a friendly amendment, that we reiterate that, well, let's go ahead and just take that motion. So all those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Well, one thing, there's a
Aye.
difference in changes on
Opposed.
cost. Jeremy said that the other day.
Are you opposed or just abstaining?
Opposed.
All right, please let the record show. And also for the record, I do still support the $430,000 project. I understand construction superintendents don't. I also know Park County had a general contractor. They didn't pay their subs. Who got sued? The county did. So we're gonna be sued no matter what because we have the deep pockets. But I think it was a well thought out plan and project, but as part of the team, since my fellows brought us to this point, I will be a team player now. So
So did you
with
vote
that,
for or against that?
four,
We didn't-
four,
okay,
yep.
We didn't hear that.
So one thing that I do want to make sure is solidified, and it was in the previous minutes, but that with the search and rescue moving into the new building, that we will be having Weed and Mosquito renovate the old search and rescue building for a redundancy, chemical storage, and the storage for their equipment. So could I get a motion on that?
I'd make that motion.
Do we have a second? Seeing none, I will second that motion. It's been moved and seconded that Weed and Mosquito will take over the vacated search and rescue building and be able to do what they need to do for their safety purposes and chemical redundancy storage. All those in favor, please signify by
Actually,
saying
you
aye.
probably need to have public comment to that.
Oh, any public comment?
What's
It's already
what's the
been-
price gonna be on this? We have no
It's-
idea again. Here we are again.
It's already been voted on. I just want to make sure that it's solid with some of our conversation the last 2 weeks. We have the money in the budget already. It shouldn't be much. We need a safety washout area just because the chemicals there. Right now, we have our chemicals stored on a wood floor without any redundancy protection, heated by a space heater. The only reason chemical have not seeped into the Townsend water supply is because of dumb luck. So, cost, I would imagine, very simply can be covered by your budget, correct, Scott? You've got a shaking in the head over there. So, any other comments? Ellen?
Yes, Alan, right? So, because I haven't made all the meetings pertaining to this issue, one was, it was a question of, so if these other departments are renting, how much, is there figures of what the cost and the total cost, because then like if you're talking chemicals, now we have EPA, you have all the regulatory.
Hang on one second, Ellen. We are actually only able to discuss the weed and mosquito, taking over the old building. But your question is incredibly timely because it's coming up next, okay? So,
Okay, so is there, so at
yes,
this point though,
there is a workup.
there is a
And
cost?
there is departmental payback plan, and it's all put together in black and white. Yes,
When you say payback, who pays who?
we'll address that in just a minute.
Okay.
Any discussion on the motion at hand? Okay, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed?
No.
All right. So, Alan, thank you. To the payback plan.
So did you vote on that?
I did.
Okay.
And I'll say it again, aye. So, the payback plan then. I guess what we need to decide is, we need to agree on the amounts per department. We'll be sharing that again with you, Alan. The interest, the revolving loan fund idea, and 10, 12, or 15 years. The previous plan was for 10 years, but since it's more money, I would suggest 12 so that there's less effect on the departments. But what we have, Alan, for a departmental payback is, first of all, right now, we're paying 10 grand a year to keep the ambulance building. That's going into payback for this project. There's also $2,500 in other heating savings that will go into this program. So there's savings of $12,500. The search and rescue payback will be $6,000, and that is the same number that the old plan had, that search and rescue agreed to 2 years ago. The payback for weed and mosquito will each be $1,158, and then the payback for extension will be $1,708. So the total will be $25,440, and then the county will pick up the difference. And that'll be out of Hilt.
So mosquito, well, the weed, mosquito, so they move into these buildings. Now,
They're moving into the old search and rescue building because there's already a concrete trough in there. That will become the chemical storage and be the first step to redundancy.
so is there any extra money that has to be spent on that building because of chemicals?
A little bit, yes. We need an emergency washout. Anytime you have chemicals, you need that. The problem is right now, it doesn't work for search and rescue because when it's cold, the doors freeze shut. We don't do mosquito or weed abatement during the winter, so freezing doors isn't an issue. Right now, search and rescue is trying to hold meetings in there. They have no heating system. So weed is going to use the meeting room in the building project. Right now, search and rescue in holding their meetings and trainings in their building that has no heat, also has no bathroom. Well, weed and mosquito is going to use the shower facility for the weed sprayers and the bathroom facility in the building project building. So the search and rescue building is just going to be storage for equipment, of weed equipment, and chemical storage. And we will have the redundancy there to protect Townsend's groundwater.
So that'll be heated for the winter?
No,
For the chemicals?
minimally. It doesn't need to be above 50 degrees. So 50 degrees is fine for chemical, it's not fine for people doing a search and rescue training. So that's the big difference right there. It does have a heater, it just is incredibly ineffective for people having a meeting in the building. But it'll work for chemical storage. It just needs to be
I
kept
thought a lot
above
of the
freezing.
chemicals specify do not freeze.
Exactly, yeah,
So if there's no heating, then it probably could freeze.
right. Which should alarm a lot of people when it's just a space heater right now. We need to correct that. So, Thanks, Alan. Shirley?
So is that building currently insulated at all?
Yes.
Yep.
Search and Rescue
So-
did a they put up some sheetrock and plywood, and they have an overhead heater, but it's not very effective for what Search and Rescue.
So what's it gonna cost us to heat that building?
Pardon?
So what's it gonna cost to heat that building to a constant 50 degrees so your chemical doesn't freeze?
Not
Is
much.
that factored into any of this cost?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty
I
minimal.
didn't hear that.
Well, right now, weed and mosquito are paying a space heater to heat the container that holds the
I
chemical.
understand that.
So it's gonna be a wash, surely, if not a savings. Space heaters are extremely expensive and inefficient. So if you're going from a space heater to a regular heater, 50, it's gonna be a wash. Did you have something to add, Eric?
Yeah, I was just gonna comment, that's about already the temperature is in the building. You know, that we keep it on core, bolt storage and different things already now, you know, cause we don't wanna start cold rigs and then run them hard. You know, so I mean, 50 degrees is about where the building's kept already, so you can actually look at your utility costs and you would automatically know the answer to that question. So, yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
All right, any other questions on the payback? Okay, so, what do you guys think? We'll have to work out the contract. Are you good with a $50 cleaning deposit? The loss of that, if staff has to clean up after somebody, the re-up of that if they want to use the building, and $20 per use? Okay, so we will work that out, and we'll work with our county attorney on that. We'll make that part of the motion. Are you good with 1.5% payback for our revolving loan? Are you good with a finite parameter of $650,000, realizing we won't need it all? Okay.
12 years.
12 years for this, okay. And then payments due in June, interest based on the July balance. And then, I think the only other piece is, are we good with the payback schedule?
I would, yeah, as long as that works and doesn't strap, I mean, I'd be willing to work with, well, I think we should be willing to work with those agencies, but yes.
And since this is new, I would be absolutely open to anybody that needs to come forward and renegotiate their payback. We'll work with you guys, and that includes, Wynn, Brandon, if you're still on the phone. Okay. Since he hung up on us, maybe it doesn't include them anymore. Just kidding. Okay, so I would entertain a motion then, with all those elements.
I'd make a motion to follow the current proposed, payment plan for the new building project.
Do we have a second? Okay, seeing none, I will, second the motion, and just so you guys are clear, it is to put together a contract with the numbers we just mentioned. This is creating a revolving loan fund program for county departments of $650,000. Those who use it will, at this point, or for this project, pay back 1.5% based on the balance in July. This will be a 12-month payback plan for the building project, and the,
12-year.
what did I say?
12-month.
12-year payback plan, thank you. Search and rescue's buy-in will be $6,000. Weeds will be $1,158, mosquito $1,158, extension $1,708, and the county will make up the difference. All those in favor, any discussion?
I have just a
Corey.
question, what was the max, what was the roof for our air cap loan? Was it 550 or 600, do you recall?
400.
It was 400 was the max? Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
All right. Please
On
let
that,
the
Corey,
record
there's
show.
already probably 40 or 50,000 off that handicap loan already that's been spent for stuff on there.
For engineering and architecture?
And engineering, advertising.
Okay.
Yep,
So the balance is gonna come from where?
for, Pilt,
Okay.
Yeah, and it should be,
Now, this turnkey one, see, that included the well and septic tank and stuff.
this is the key
Yeah, I don't-
turnkey.
And on this other, it wasn't in there.
That's why we're not going with that. Do you know what we just did? We wanted the turnkey, not the 430.
I realize that.
Okay.
I'm against the whole thing anyway, so why should I change my mind?
So the county will be paying about $11,643 a year, $12,000 roughly. So I am concerned, Franklin, that you would vote for $30,000 in engineering when you didn't ever intend to proceed with the project. That is extremely wasteful.
At that time, that's what we had to find out something. Don't start talking about wasteful. Thousands and thousands you wasted.
I have saved, Franklin, there's a difference. Yes, Melinda,
To clarify, this 12,000 that you were just saying,
yes.
where's that gonna come from? Is that coming from PILT or is that coming from?
Bill,
Okay,
Yep.
thank you very much.
and the payback to Intercap would have been actually about the same. So even though it's a more expensive project, the payback annually is about the same.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, you bet. All right, anything else on those subjects? Did I miss anything, guys? All right. We still getting together at 1:30?
130?
Yeah, we can.
Billy?
Now that the search and rescue is still gonna be in the same building for a while, I brought some things to your attention before, like grading and maybe, keep the water away from the doors and stuff, and maybe doing some snow shoveling, because once the snow gets up there, nobody's shoveling it, and that's why the doors are freezing. Sure. Partially, so, and then the roof on the ambulance, something should be done about that, whether they're keeping the people in there and causing the black mold to come back, when we keep talking about things, and
Someone also brought up the fact of putting maybe heat tape down on the bottom of those doors.
if they would get the snow away from them, icing up and build a nice
Sure.
jam, and then with the heat, so I talked to the search and rescue, nobody followed me. So, just a little 2-foot
Sure.
rain would help, the doors probably wouldn't freeze. So.
All right, anything else for the good of the order? No? All right, this meeting is recessed for lunch until 1:30.